Hello, my name is Jensen Coonrad, and welcome to episode 1 of our Onshape for Robotics class. As we get into this, we're going to learn what is CAD, and why is it important to learn. We're going to explore by setting up our CAD environment with an experiment with some of the different tools. Then we're going to learn how to use basic constraints, and finally we're going to do an epic challenge to apply what we've learned. So firstly, what is CAD? CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. It is the use of computer software in the design process. And this lets you design 3D and 2D parts that can be manufactured. In robotics, it can help you design parts to 3D print or flat parts to mill. Like as you can see in this top image here, this is what you typically think of when you think of CAD softwares, is creating these 3D parts in order to 3D print them. So that's up here. Or you can even make 2D sketches in your CAD software, which can be used to mill and manufacture other parts for your robot, as can be seen down here. So we're going to be using Onshape throughout this class. Onshape is a free online software that we can use for CAD. It's kind of like the Google Docs of CAD design because not only is it free, but it also allows you to have multiple editors creating a part at once, which makes it really great for FTC teams. It also gives you automatic access to the entire FTC parts library, which can let you eventually create assemblies of your robot like these ones here, using all of the FTC parts available. Now let's get into CADing. So exploration. Go to onshape.com-en-education-sign up to create your free Onshape for Education account. Enter the information in the white sign up box, hit the button to create your account, and if it asks you to verify your email, please verify your email. So pause the video here and set up your free Onshape account quickly, and we'll get back to it. Okay, so now that you set up your Onshape account, we are going to sign into our accounts and create a new parts document. So I'm going to do this with you. Let me go and, so onshape.com, then I'm going to sign in. It'll automatically sign me into my account. And then I'm going to hit create. And I'm not going to create a folder because folders are just how you organize parts documents. I'm going to create a document. Documents are where you can create parts. So this will be online CAD class 1. You can name your part anything you want. And I'm going to hit create public document. And now it's created my CAD document. In here, I can create assemblies and design 3D and 2D parts. So to start in creating my part, we're going to, after signing in, hit the sketch button in the upper right-hand corner and select the top plane. So what this is going to let us do is actually sketch a 2D part, because how CAD works is, imagine you have a bunch of pieces of paper. CAD lets you first sketch a 2D drawing of your part on a piece of paper, and then it's like you can bring it out of the paper into real life, creating this 3D part. So like let's imagine I draw it on this 2-piece piece of paper, which is my hand here. I use CAD to actually extrude it out of this paper, bringing it to real life and making it a 3D part. So what we're first going to do is hit sketch. Then we're going to hit this top plane here. We're just going to start on the top plane for our first sketch. Eventually we'll go into other planes. Then to actually get ourselves at an angle where we're staring down at the top plane so it's easier to draw, we're going to hit top. Great. So from here, we are going to get into some important information. So firstly, you can see a bunch of different tools up here. If you hover over them, it actually says what they are and how to use them, like this center point circle, this line. So what we're going to do is first learn what the line does. So line, if I click on it, if I click on any point on the screen and click on another point anywhere else, I can just let go of my mouse, click on a different point, I've created a line. And what's cool is if I don't hit escape or deselect the tool, it just keeps on making more lines, like this. So you can just experiment with this for a bit, try to, draw some shapes on your own using these line tools. And then if I want to escape and be done drawing this shape and not keep making more lines, I just hit the escape key on my keyboard, and then I'm done with these lines. But the thing is right now, like these lines, this isn't going to help you make a part. Like these are so disorganized, they don't even have measurements, they're at random angles. In order to actually give these lines angles and different constraints, we use constraint tools here. So these are all the different constraint tools. If you hover over them, you can see more about what they do. But so first, if we go through these, the constraints we're going to be using are the coincident constraint, which makes 2 or more sketch entities share the same points. This can make it so if I hit this tool, I select one point, and then select this point, they now have to share the same point, so it actually connects those lines to each other, making this a full shape. We're going to be using the horizontal and vertical constraints, which makes it so a line has to be vertical, like this, or it has to be horizontal, like this. We'll also be learning about the equal constraint, where if you select 2 lines, they actually have to be equal in length now. So now this line is equal to this one in length. There's also some other important constraints like the parallel constraint. So if I made this line parallel to this line, now you can see they have the same angle here and they're parallel. Some other important constraints that we're going to cover is the perpendicular constraint, where you can make 90-degree angles if you select one line and then the other line. Now they're connected by a 90-degree angle exactly. As well as the midpoint constraint, which we'll get into later in the video. So for our first challenge, I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to first show how to make a square using some of these constraints. So I'm going to hit escape to escape the constraint tool. Now to delete previous lines, you can just select everything by clicking on one point, dragging over the rest of the screen, and just hitting the delete key, and it will delete things. So let's draw a square. You might notice as you're drawing that sometimes your lines turn like yellow and there's this nice little box. That's because Onshape wants to help you by auto-constraining things. Like if I clicked here and I go up here and it's still yellow, this is automatically making it coincident to this center point of our sketch, which is always called the origin. And it's automatically making my line vertical, which while you're actually sketching, making your robot parts, you're definitely going to want to use these auto-constraints because it substantially speeds up your process. But for now, while I'm creating the part, I'm going to try to avoid using them to make it so you don't get lost by me having an auto constraint that you somehow don't have. So let's make a square. Let's first, squares have 4 lines. Let's imagine I can't even connect the lines. I don't know why I can't connect the lines, but I can't. So I'm going to hit escape to be done drawing the lines. First, I'll use coincident to make these 2 points connect to each other. Great. Now, squares, by the way, if you want to zoom in or out, I'm not using a mouse, so I just am using the trackpad where I just move my fingers apart or close with each other, and it lets you zoom. So for squares, they have perpendicular lines. So this should be perpendicular to this. This should be perpendicular to this. And this should be perpendicular to this. Great. They also, everything is of equal length. So right now, you can actually make it so they're not equal length. They're not constrained to have an equal length. I can move it. It's pretty much just like a rectangle. But if I constrain them to have an equal length, so like this one, it's going to be the same length as this. And this guy, same length as this. Yeah, so it should all be constrained there because we've already set the perpendicular. So now, if I move it, it still stays in the shape of a square. Finally, I'm going to make it so this is no longer tilted to the side. I'm going to make it so this line is horizontal, which should move everything because of how it's constrained. Then I'm going to use the coincident tool, select this point, select the origin, and now the square is constrained to the origin. Finally, we're going to set some dimensions. So right now, this square has no dimensions because, it can be bigger, it can be smaller. That's because we never set any numerical dimensions for the lengths of the side. To do that, we click up here, and this is the dimension tool. We click on it. Then we click on a side of the square. We click on the line. We hit somewhere else, too. And then we have a dimension. So let me do that one more time for you. So all you do, I say Control-Z. It gets rid of my most recent changes. I'm hitting up here, hitting the dimension tool. Okay, I'm clicking on a line. Then I'm clicking somewhere else on the screen, and it sets this dimension. Then I can just change it to any value. It's fine if yours is in inches or centimeters. That's just part of the settings of Onshape. So make this 3 centimeters. And since all of these I already set to have the equal constraints, all of these lines are going to be equal in length. So now all 4 of these lines are 3 centimeters long. What's cool is you can use this to make other important shapes as well. So let's imagine we wanted to make a pentagon. So we're going to set that up. So there's 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, and 5 lines. So let's go and make an amazing pentagon. So first, all the lines are going to be equal in length. That's an important step. It's equal, equal, equal. So all I'm doing is equal stays selected until you hit escape. So I can just hit one line, hit the other line, and it makes them equal. Great. So now, I forgot the exact angle we need between the different points of a pentagon, so we're going to look that up. So 108 degrees. So an important part of dimensioning is not only can we dimension the length of sides, we can also dimension angles. So I'm going to hit the dimension tool, and to dimension an angle, you select one line, then select another line, and now we have the dimension of that angle. So I click somewhere else, and now I've set that down, and it's 108 degrees, so I'm just going to type in 108, and now that's 108 degrees. Now I can do that for my other angles, so hit that one, hit that line, 108 degrees. Before, if the square, we could just use the perpendicular tool for this, but since these are not perpendicular, we have to specify. So now everything, because of having everything be set equal in length, is all going to be 108 degrees, the angles, just based on some geometry and how that works. Finally, let's make this bottom line horizontal. So now our thing is beautifully lined up. And then let's use the coincident tool to set this point exactly where our origin is. So now that you've seen how to create different polygons that are have the same side lengths using these constraint tools, we're going to give you guys a challenge based on seeing how to make the square and this shape. So let's delete this. Okay, so your challenge is going to be to make this triangle. So feel free to pause the video, use the equal constraint to ensure the sides are of equal lengths, and then use the horizontal constraint if needed to have the bottom line be horizontal. And finally, set all of the sides to have a length of 2, whether it's 2 centimeters or 2 inches, it doesn't really matter, it's just your scale will be different. But set one of the sides to have a length of 2, and that should set all the sides to have that same length. So feel free to pause the video here and try to make it, and if you're stuck, just unpause and I'll walk through it next. Okay, let's make a triangle. So I'm let's go to our CAD studio. So let's imagine we X out of this sketch just in case you get lost and accidentally exit your sketch. So let's create a new sketch. We're gonna hit sketch. We're gonna hit the top plane. Then we're gonna hit top here to zoom us in to a good view to create our part. Then we're gonna make some lines to draw a triangle. I could always use auto constraints, but I'm gonna make sure not to. So I'm gonna be really bad at drawing a triangle. So I'm gonna hit escape to stop drawing my lines now. And firstly, to close up the triangle, I'm gonna use the coincident thing. And there's no reason why you couldn't have just at least closed the triangle. It automatically should snap close. But if you're like me and apparently can't draw a triangle, you can use the coincident constraint down here, hit this point, and look, we got a triangle. But is it equilateral? No, it is not. So now we're gonna set the sides to be equal length. So I'm gonna hit this line and this line with the equals, and so now they're equal. Then I'm gonna hit this line and this line, and now they're equal in length, so now it's a beautiful equilateral triangle, but now we want to line it up to this origin. So I'm going to use the coincident constraint first, hit this line and this point, and now they're at the same point. Finally, I'm going to use the horizontal constraint and make this line horizontal. And there we go, we got a triangle. But to set the length of the sides, I'm going to need to use a dimension. So I'm going to escape out of that, hit dimension, hit this side here. It could be any of the sides because we already set them to all have equal lengths. And I'm going to make it, it accidentally created a angle there because I somehow accidentally clicked this line here. This is one of the axes. When you're sketching, you have 2 axes at an origin automatically, and you can always do angles to that as well. But we're just trying to get a length, so I'm going to click this line, click here, and I'm going to set it to 5 centimeters or 5 inches, whatever you want to set it to. You can set it to 2 inches, whatever dimension you want. And there we go, we've made a beautiful triangle. Okay, so using our dimension skills and our constraint skills, I have another challenge for us where we're going to create this L shape. So you're going to use constraints as needed. The lines may snap to be horizontal or vertical, and constraints will automatically apply, or you might have to manually apply these yourself. And then you're going to use the dimension tool to copy the dimensions you see on screen here. So feel free to pause the video, take a few minutes to work on this. If you get stuck, just unpause it, and I'll be walking through it. Okay, let's make this L. So I'm going to delete this sketch. I just hit the X to delete it. And so let's go back out here. We're going to create a new sketch on this top plane. Hit top. You could also just have selected your sketch and hit delete. I'm just making sure if you get locked out, it's easy for you to make a new sketch. And we're going to make this amazing L here. So firstly, let's make the general shape of the L, and then we'll apply some dimensions. So let's imagine that I can't draw vertical or horizontal lines, so no automatic constraints happen. Just in case you don't have those constraints, you can apply them yourself. Oh no, that line was actually correct. Okay. So I hit Control Z, and I'm going back into my line tool. Let's make sure that nothing is horizontal or vertical. It's actually challenging. Oh no, that's so hard. So that actually, okay, there we go. Here's our amazing L shape. So first, let's close up the shape. Let's make this coincident to this. There we go. Beautiful. Next, we are going to use the perpendicular tool to make these lines perpendicular. And these lines perpendicular, and these lines perpendicular, and these lines perpendicular, and these lines perpendicular. So all I do is click one, click the other line, now they're perpendicular. There we go. Next, let's use the coincident tool. Set this point, the same point as this point. Then we're going to use the horizontal tool and set this line to horizontal. And while you're doing your constraints, there's actually many different ways you can do the same thing. Like let's say I hit undo. Instead of making one line horizontal, I can instead make a line vertical. And there's so many different ways you can apply to the constraints to get the exact same effect. So it's totally cool if you use a different approach than me to apply your constraints as long as it works. Next, we're going to apply our dimensions. So this is going to be 4, it's going to be 4, those are both going to be 2. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to set these lines to be equal in length. So I only have to dimension one of them. So let's make this guy equal to this guy. And then we're going to make this guy equal to this guy. Great, and now let's hit the dimension tool. Hit this line, hit off this line, make it 4. And then we're gonna hit this guy, make it 2. And there we go, we've got a fully dimensioned shape. So the way you know that you're done and are ready to work on the next stage of your CAD model is when the shape, everything turns black. If anything's blue, like if I hit undo here and get rid of that dimension, if anything's blue, that means it can still move and change. You want to have it so everything is turned black, and that's how you know you've defined every single feature of your design and are actually ready to move to the 3D model. So let's make this 2 again. Okay, so that's that same exact part, just I got to use slightly less dimension thanks to using the equal tool. And now let's learn how to bring this into the 3rd dimension. So the most basic way to bring your 2D sketch into the 3rd dimension is the extrude tool. So pretty much all you do is, so I finished my sketch, so I hit the check mark, and then I just hit this corner of this cube here to give me a better view in the 3rd dimension of my part. So here's my little 2D part on its little piece of paper. What I can do is I can hit the extrude tool, click on my little sketch here, and now I can give it a depth. So let's imagine I put in 5 here. Now it has a 5 centimeter depth. I hit check mark. Look at that. We have an amazing 3D part we just made. You've just made your first 3D part. Look at that. Here we go. But what if, let's imagine the sketch actually had disappeared when I was doing that. That's an issue some people have. All you have to do to make the sketch appear again so you can actually extrude it is hit this little eye, and there we go. Now we have the part back. So we're going to go here. We're going to extrude it. And yeah, we have an amazing 3D part now. So I'm going to create a different part to show some other exciting features of extrude. So let's delete this part. So I'm just going to get rid of this extrude, and I'm just going to go back into the sketch and delete it this way this time instead of just deleting the sketch overall. So I'm going to select it all, hit delete. So this time we're going to make a bit of an H shape. I'm still going to purposely be bad at automatically applying constraints. Like instead of making the line vertical, and it snaps to that too because it wants to automatically apply constraints. I'm just going to make it like this. A very bad H. Here we go. This is about how I write in real life, honestly. I'm really bad at handwriting. Teachers can never read it. Let's go. Beautifully bad H. Oh, yeah. Takes skill to be this bad at drawing an H. Can't even connect it in the end. There we go. So now first I'm going to use the coincident constraint. Close this H up. Next we're going to use my perpendicular constraint. Let's get these lines to be perpendicular. I find it's really easy to go in with perpendicular first just because it really cleans everything up. Perpendicular constraints. Oh, look at that beautiful, beautiful H. Okay, so next we're going to use some equals line constraints because clearly these sides are not equal. So we're going to hit this side. Now they're equal in length. This line, they're equal. This line, they're equal. This line, they're equal. This line, and they're equal. That's looking a lot better. So next I'm going to use the coincident constraint to get it aligned to the origin. And remember, you can go through any order of these steps here. You might be doing a totally different order, and that's fine, as long as you end up with the same results and it's all turned black, meaning you have it fully constrained. So next we are going to add some dimensions to this H. So I just hit D for dimension. You can also click on it. You can see that if you hold over it, it has this little D thing here. That's because if you just hit the D key, it automatically activates this tool. So let's click on the line, click off the line, 5 centimeters. Let's click down here, click off of up here, let's make it 1 centimeter. Let's click here, click over here, 2 centimeters. Let's make this a little bit bigger just so it's easier to see. 3 centimeters, okay. And what else is still able to move? So I'm gonna make these 2 lines equal, the length of this guy and the length of this guy, so I don't have to dimension it. There we go. And then, so things are still blue, meaning that everything is not fully dimensioned. So let's make sure that, so these guys have to be equal length. What can be moved here? So it can still be moved all the way out because we've never dimensioned the top part of either of these. So let's use our dimension, go here, click off. I don't know, I'm gonna make it 2 centimeters. When you're actually CAD designing, you're gonna have measurements based on like your robot, what you need it to do. But for now, I'm just, mixing it up. And as we put in that dimension, you can see everything turn black, meaning that we succeeded. No longer is anything able to move, so we can actually move on. But the way I always know that is, things are blue, and then I can just click on the blue line and just use my cursor to drag it around and see what can change. And I can see clearly that the dimension of this line is changing and this line. So that's why I can just simply go here and set its dimension. Click on the line, click off the line, 2. So there we go. We've made this shape. I'm going to check mark. Next, we're going to extrude it like we did before. So I'm going to click the extrude tool, click on my sketch, and make it, I don't know, 5 centimeters again. Great. But let's imagine that I wanted to have a hole going through the side of this. So what I'd first have to do is I'd have to sketch like on this side and actually sketch a hole. And then I'd have to use the extrude tool to somehow make this hole go through it. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's imagine I make a sketch. But this time, instead of sketching on a plane to make a whole new part, we're actually going to sketch on the side of this shape in order to make that hole. So I'm going to click here. And then I'm going to click this right side so I can actually view it and have it like a face down view. And here we go. So let's imagine we had we had a measurement of our robot and we knew that the hole needed to be. So how did I make this hole firstly? I clicked on the circle tool up here. It's a center point circle. So I clicked on that. And with the center point circle, you just click the center point, you click another point, and that creates a circle. And then when you dimension it, you just hit the dimension tool. You hit the circle, hit off the circle, and this is the the diameter of your circle. So let's imagine we wanted to have a 1 centimeter diameter. Great. Now, I'm going to put a line in here because we're going to want 2 circles on top of each other, hypothetically. So let's make another circle and put it on this line. So firstly, I want this circle to be on this line, so I'm going to use the coincident tool. Points on the line. So that center point is the center point of the circle. Next, we want them to have the same diameter, so I'm going to use the equal tool. Select this circle, select this circle. Now they're the same that way. And finally, I'm going to want this circle to have a certain distance from the top. So what I'm going to do is hit escape, hit the dimension tool. I'm going to hit the center point of this circle, hit the top of this, and I'm going to make it 2 centimeters. I'm going to do the same down here and make that 2 centimeters. Okay, those are a little bit close to each other, but that's all right. So let's imagine this is what we wanted our design to look like. One thing I'm going to do before I continue with making it a 3D part is I'm going to hit this line, and I'm going to hit this. This makes it a construction line. What that means is I don't want this to be interpreted when I'm actually making my 3D part. I just use that to align these circles here, and I do not want us to impact me making the 3D part. So right now the circles are a little bit close together, and I'm going to want them to be a slightly further apart, so I'm just going to change this dimension here to make them both 1 centimeter from the edge. So let's work on extruding these circles. So firstly, we could make them into their own separate parts. So if I hit extrude, hit the circle, and I just hit new, like I had before, it's going to make its own separate part. So it's a different color because it's actually a different part in our parts list down here. That'll become more important in the future. But what if we wanted just to add it to this main part? So if I hit add, now it's just actually going to be part of this one part. So if I use it in assemblies, this is all just one part. Finally, what if I wanted to actually get rid of it and go into this body? So if I go back into my extrude, you can just double click on an extrude to edit it and change it, or I could just have hit delete and make a new one. So what if I want to remove it? So I can hit remove, and I have to hit remove and then select targets and tools. Well, right now it's going the wrong direction to remove. So I'm going to hit this arrow and drag it backwards. And this way it's actually going into the shape and removing from it. And that's why we have an amazing hole here. Okay, so I'm going to hit check mark. There we go, we've made a hole. Well, firstly, if I wanted to edit this, I could select the other face too, this other circle, and now it's going to make 2 holes. But also extrude has some features to make it more intelligent than just having a blind length here. Because right now, let's imagine we changed our shape here a bit and made this like further apart because we found that we had to fix that. Right now, this would not adjust according to that, and it would still might act and behave oddly. But what we can do is instead of using a blind, which could have these issues in the future, we could have up to next, which this will just go until the next face it hits, which will just be this part of the H. Or you can have up to face, where I can select which face I want it to go to. So I select this face here. It's going to go through both of them. All these features also exist inside of the add too. So if we wanted to add like a thing between here, we could select up to face and collect the other face. There's other options too, like up to parts, which we don't have another part, or well, we do. We have this part. It would just go through the first side though. Through all. This way, it's just going to go through everything automatically. So yeah, you have some other options besides just blind, where you just put in a length for. And here you can change the direction, or as you can use that arrow like I showed before, or you can actually just change the direction here. There's some other tools as well, but yeah, that's about how it works regards to extruding to make some awesome shapes. So before the next class, feel free to play around, make some more exciting creative shapes to practice, and then the next class we're going to be covering how to use the revolve tool and the fillets tool. Hope to see you next class, and have a great day.